Hi, thank you for listening to Quantum Healing today. My name is Melanie, and today we have Dr. JJ Hurtak and Dr. Desiree Hurtak, and we will be talking about the challenges and insights into the future of humanity and also the power of the mind and how we can use that to heal ourselves.
Right. It's great to be with you, Melanie. And this is something that's so important for everyone to understand right now, because many people are starting to feel disempowered.
Yes, many people, unfortunately, tend to look to the negative because the media likes to play up the sensationalism of negativity. And this is a great challenge. And as social scientists, Desiree and I decided many years ago to put together an organization for worldwide education, but also a new psychology that would understand the power of consciousness. And consciousness has gradually come into the foreground. In fact, so our Academy for Future Science is science based on consciousness, science based upon positive psychology, and science based upon using the visual arts, particularly sacred geometry and sacred art with music as a way of stimulating understanding of a holistic picture of life.
Right. And so what we're writing about right now is the fact that, people are, again, overwhelmed by many of the tragedies going on around the world, and that we have to realize that we can make a difference. We can put positive energy out, not only to help heal ourselves. And of course, yes, in certain circumstances, please go to your allopathic doctors that are required when you have certain situations. But in other cases, especially I know like yours, Melanie, that when you had an issue and they said there's nothing that they can do, you said, well, maybe there's something I can do. And we actually know a Lama out here in New York who they wanted to amputate his leg. And he called upon the Dalai Lama and said, what can I do? I don't want this to happen. The Dalai Lama sent him a very strong meditation formula, which he was able to use to actually heal his leg.
This is the visualization exercise of showing that there are microtubules running throughout our body that can be used as energy conduits for golden light or positive energy flowing through the body. So the body, as we know, is a biocomputer, very sophisticated system of working with trillions of cells, but also the body is a vessel of what we consider higher energy or divine energy that can be, we're a vessel of self-healing, regulation of biological limitations and actually exalting the divine human spark of life. So we're at a new crossroads, and this is what we want to point out today. We've been privileged to work with some of the best minds at Stanford Research Institute in California, working with some of the top astronauts who did experiments on outer space. In fact, Desiree's father was the creator of one of the space medicines in outer space. So we know the sky is just the beginning of a whole new civilization if we can begin to bootstrap a new reality, basically understand that we can find answers to most of the challenges and problems, as you did, Melanie, by concentrating on the power of the mind.
Right. Yes, definitely. And through my situation, to share with some who don't know my story, I was in a car accident that left me permanently disabled from the waist down to my toes. And doctors said there was nothing they could do. And after that, it gradually got worse. Well, only with that because my mind got worse, thinking I was going to live the rest of my life that way. And so when I found quantum healing hypnosis, that is actually the tool that I used to connect with myself and my higher self, to really listen to the reason and the purpose of what happened. And the reason why that happened was because I wasn't supposed to be a massage therapist. I was supposed to be a hypnotherapist. And so I really feel like the universe will send us messages for a reason, so that we can hear and we can listen. And if we're not paying attention, then something bigger will happen. So yes, I definitely can see that.
Absolutely agree with that. And so that's why it's so important that we do take time out for our spiritual work, whether it's something of the East or something of the West, that we really do take that energy and listen to the still small voice and make the right choices. Actually, we have a book out that we've written with many other people like Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden. It's all these people coming together called Our Moment of Choice. And technically, every moment is our moment of choice. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've seen this growing up, that people from, we'll say, especially 15 to 20, if they're making the wrong directional choices in their lives, really sometimes get a correction, so to speak, one way or the other, to put them in the right path. But on the other hand, also, and I think we can end suffering by listening to that still small voice. But on the other hand, many people have to feel it first to listen. So they have to have that situation happen to them, and then they start making the right decisions. And it's sad because I don't think that's a necessity. That's a big question. Can we do it without suffering? And I believe yes, but you have to listen to your higher self. We believe that people actually have a higher guidance, and that higher guidance is what we call their overself body. We have a book called The Overself Body. But in addition to that, there's also spiritual guides and other helpers, we'll say spiritual helpers, that do direct you along your path. And people used to call them the guardian angels. The guardian angels don't always just guard. Sometimes they kick you in the pants as well.
Well, your story is one of great courage. And Desiree mentioned this book, which we have illustrated by some of the finest artists in the world. We see a picture of the Divine Mother, the sacred areas of the world that are drawn together through a higher metaphysics and paraphysics of how the mind can actually project to these areas of the world as a healing conduit, what we call remote healing and remote communication. This was studied many years ago at Stanford Research Institute by Dr. Elizabeth Targ, as well as Russell Targ, who we've worked with. These were exciting times in the 1970s. The scientific medical community would not accept the fact that we have another energy field that we can operate that goes beyond 2 inches off the surface of our body, called what we call corona discharge, or what the Russian scientists call the Kirlian effect of actually seeing the energy glow of our body. But that's just a taste of a greater story that Stanford Research Institutes were able to pursue, showing that the human body basically is a subsystem of a larger body of information and energy that we can always tap into. We are living in a field or ocean of consciousness that has incredible power if we can tune into that. But that requires a humility, a purity of heart, and an open-mindedness that we can accept the fact that we are being trained, I believe, the wrong way by using only one part of our brain, which is the materialistic scientific side, the left side of the brain, rather than the right side, which is the multidimensional, musical, metaphysical sides.
And I just want to say one thing regarding even remote viewing, which is, of course, seeing at a distance, that what Stanford Research Institute found is that everybody can do it. I think that's so important to realize. It's not just the few. Yes, some people are a little bit more gifted than others, but everybody can do it. And I say oftentimes, the best way to practice this that we all have now is go ahead and before someone calls you
on your cell phone,
or when you're hearing the ring, before you look at it, actually think who's calling you. This kind of tunes you into that consciousness field, because that person is calling you and you should be able to pick up on who is calling you. And we have a friend from England, Rupert Sheldrake, who did studies regarding cell phones and people's families. And especially when it's your family, you can usually tell if it's your mother, your sister, all the stuff before looking at it. It's a great thing that everybody can play with and do, because we believe, and this is so important to understand, that consciousness is not in your head only, that there's a field of consciousness. This is something that's also known by Lynn McTaggart, who wrote a book called The Field, and we agree with her wholeheartedly. We are kind of biotransducers, we'll say radio transmitters and receivers and senders of information from that field. So that means two things. One, there's always solutions That is key. And you found that solution in what you needed to do. You found ways to be able to heal and help yourself because it's always available for you. But it also means it's important to send positive energy into that field so that others can pick up on it. And we feel that field is not limited to the earth, that it's really part of a cosmic universal field. So we can get even greater levels of information than anything available earthbound.
So Desiree's reference to Rupert Sheldrake is important because there's a visual contact experience that we can also use in identifying objects and people at distant places without technology. This is called remote viewing. Remote viewing goes along with remote communication, remote healing, the great gifts that historically we refer to as gifts of the divine or Holy Spirit. And in our new book with Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, the foremost medical and mathematical genius of Stanford and Berkeley, we published a title called Mind Dynamics in Space and Time, a 600 plus report of all the top secret research that was done privately at the University of California and Stanford University, as well as Stanford Research Institute in the 1970s and 80s. In essence, it's the X-Files, the real X-Files. And this book goes into the hundreds of reports of how the mind can see buildings and describe at a distance. The text is full of unique pictures and illustrations. And you can get this on Amazon or through Academy for Future Science. The point I'm making is we are proven scientifically with some of the best minds in the United States that we have a new opportunity to use the latent powers of the mind, the invisible powers of communication more effectively, not only for healing, but also for group, shall we say, problem solving with others throughout the whole world.
Right. And Melanie, I want to hear a little bit more about your own experiences and the work of hypnosis. But I do want to say that one of the essences of this book, which is actually highly scientific, so I don't ask people
but it's for disbelievers
who aren't scientists to really look at it, who aren't interested in science. But the essence of the work of Elizabeth Rauscher is that our consciousness is not just working in a third/fourth dimensional reality, that is space and time as we know it, but actually can work on the fifth to eighth dimensional reality, and especially what she calls eighth space, where time is really all kind of run together as past, present, and future. Now, we do believe we have free will and we can change the future. I want to say that for everyone. But basically, the fact is that we are not just operating on the third/fourth dimension. I wonder if hypnosis is really part of your higher self kind of coming in sometimes to help influence and add to the information in your own third dimensional brain. What do you think hypnosis really does?
That's a really good question. What I think hypnosis does, especially as that two-way street, as we know, of being connected with our 3D selves and our higher selves, not only are we in our body, but our body is in our consciousness, our field, yes. So I think with the connection of hypnosis, I really feel that since we go down to that theta, or even lower sometimes, then we are able to access and even astral travel from that perspective a lot easier than we realize. And I think that with that intention to travel, to research, to discover, to explore multidimensionals, Akashic records, we can look at others who have passed away. We can bring forward other subconscious higher selves that I've done through a session. And it's really miraculous on what is possible. And so to me, it's really just like jumping into that bigger ocean and field of cosmic design and fabric and who we are. And not only does it go, parallel, but it can also go vertical, horizontal. And from what I know and from what I understand, there are other universes out there. And that is really what I want to explore is other universes, the purpose of reincarnation and karma, and what is source really, and the not only the history of America and Earth, but I also want to look at the history of our ancient history and human culture. Where did we come from? And the development of where we're going. And because I really feel that's what's most important, just as well as where we came from is important.
Well, that's a wonderful overview.
Great questions.
And we addressed this in our book, Keys of Enoch, which we published in 1973, which actually shows historic areas of evolutionary development that could be found, such as Yonaguni under the oceans off of Taiwan and Japan, where Japanese underwater divers found specifically what we wrote about. And this was as a result of a contact experience where my consciousness could see briefly into the future. So we know that all of what you discussed is possible. We are not simply dummies in a body that cannot see forwards or backwards in space and time. We are a vibratory experience of consciousness. And consciousness is being defined now as something more than the flow of chemistry throughout your body. Consciousness is the ocean of breath and awareness that we live in. And we are part of a global mind. We are part of a cosmic mind. And there are tributaries of consciousness development that connect the physical with the non-physical.
Well, yeah, I loved what you said. It was fabulous. I mean, I know some people go to hypnosis just to learn to stop smoking. And we totally agree with that, because people shouldn't be smoking. It only hurts their bodies. But, and that's just kind of giving we'll say an affirmation. But it's interesting to say that I think there is much more, and that's what we talk about as well, that supposedly, and I don't know if this is true because I've actually never had the hypnosis, but that people say that if you tell someone to do something that they really don't want to do, regardless, they won't be able to do it. I guess there's certain levels of hypnosis, maybe brainwashing in that sense, that would allow that. But I think because what you were saying, it comes from a connection with their higher self. It seems like your work with hypnosis is really taking people out of their physical reality and hooking them in to that greater consciousness field, which is their higher self. So I think that's fabulous. And yes, I mean, what is the source of that self? Well, let me tell you a little bit about our own philosophy in these areas, because your questions were amazing. One, we feel that we didn't necessarily evolve so much from the ooze of the earth that you've been taught in high school, but more from a consciousness reality, from a light body reality. This even goes back to the Bible, because, what was the fall? They fell into bodies of skin. Well, what were they before that? Well, were they amoeba? No, they were light energies that came in and decided to take a reality check into a third/fourth dimensional world. And so we really have that. And if you look at even the bones of our bodies, which is like the mathematics of 12 in terms of the rib cage and other aspects of our body, the mathematics is amazing. So it's more than just happenstance. I think that's the most important thing to realize. So
you're saying there's a mathematical design in our spinal system?
Everywhere in the body.
And also the different aspects of the circulatory systems of our body.
Exactly. So that's really part of what we talk about. And in addition to that, so what does that mean? Well, it means we're not alone in the universe, because there was obviously something before we manifested here, and that we feel the universe is teeming with life. As our friend Alan Steinfeld says, when you can look in the middle of the pavement and find grass growing, you can understand that life is abundant, and it's probably not just on this planet. And it's probably not just extraterrestrial life, which is fascinating. And we've seen extraterrestrial craft, and we think that's amazing too. But what we've also worked with is what we call ultra terrestrial intelligences, which are light beings that are of that original light essence, and that we feel is behind most of the reality of the higher universe. Precisely
what we call the higher evolution. In other words, evolution doesn't stop with Mother Earth, but continues. And we see this now in the technologies that are behind government disclosure programs worldwide. We had the opportunity many years ago to work with astronaut Gordon Cooper, one of the great astronaut pioneers who had personal experiences of seeing literally dozens of spaceships in formation. And he said that Harry Truman was the first president to actually acknowledge that this was a higher technology from some other cosmic civilization in 1950s. In short, we have to realize that we're living in a vast and awesome universe that requires us to have a greater blueprint of evolution. And the key to this is consciousness, the design of how we change and adapt to new challenges of life, how we find answers, how we can find artistic directions of inspiration, and how ultimately we are connected with the divine universal source that puts all things into a type of consciousness harmonic. And those who follow the harmonic, the ancient mystics called peace and harmony, have the happiness within the heart that allows them to make contact with new sources of knowledge and possibly even wisdom sources that can ennoble the human race.
Right. So what's important, and many people like Stephen Hawkins said, if extraterrestrials come, it'll be like the Spanish arriving in the New World and, we'll be taken over. But going back to the original part, the first part of our program today, basically, we are empowered, we believe, with a higher consciousness where we can actually stand, we'll say, face to face with not all, but some levels of extraterrestrial intelligence. Because I believe not only will there be little gray beings and reptilians and insectoids being found in outer space, but also what we call ourselves the Adamic species. So we are not only here on this planet, we exist in other places of the universe, and there's many other forms of intelligence that look like us, some a little bit different, some with elongated skulls, some much taller than we are, but we're all part of this higher kind of genetic, we'll say, God code, because if you look at the code for our DNA, it comes from 4 letters, but goes down into basically a 3 codon process. So you have that whole genetic code, which we consider a divine code, also within us, that we think exists also in the universe. So let's also be empowered when these extraterrestrial intelligences start making their appearances more and more, which we feel will come in the coming years.
And this may sound like science fiction to many watching our program, but again, I emphasize this book, Making Contact by Ellen Steinfeld, that you can get on Amazon.
Which we wrote a chapter in.
Because he includes the work of Nick Pope, who worked with the British intelligence services and was basically responsible for the release of tens of thousands of pages of documentation from behind the scenes. In this chapter that we wrote about, we speak about the multidimensionality of the human mind and human consciousness. And this is perhaps the greatest breakthrough that happened by the scientists at Stanford Research Institute, realizing that even in the splitting of the atom, there's something even greater to be found, and that is in consciousness itself, that we as humans are multidimensional. Our mind can go in different directions, in different powers, in different realities. So let us use this multidimensional aspect of life as a musical matrix to reach out to do greater healing, greater sociological balance in areas of violence and human misunderstanding, greater educational incentives for the healing arts as well as the creative arts, and of course, building a global civilization that can show our cosmic friends, we call the cosmic cultures, that we are ready to graduate and join a family of nations of those who have gone beyond the curvature of where we are in space and time.
So it's always important also to understand that when we talk about, say, the 5th dimension, which really would be the next, because according to Einstein, the 4th dimension is time, although some people may disagree with that. But ultimately, if we go into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dimension, it's not just us there. There's myriads of beings of intelligence that we believe and have, in some cases, encountered that exist in those realities. And I think this is what you're getting from some of your associates with hypnosis as well as understanding past lives, because I know that there's been books written about that, where people go into these hypnotic states and they actually see themselves in the past and in some cases in the future, because that's all part of the 8th dimension.
Yes. And let's go to how one can use our own DNA thoughts through meditation not just, well, hypnosis is meditation. I mean, all hypnosis is guided meditation or self-hypnosis. So it's not really someone doing it to you. It's the act of acceptance and as a tool, right? So how can somebody use their own power without hypnosis?
A very important question. And this really comes to our work in using multidimensional concentration, of bringing into consideration how the mind can work with sacred vibrations or inner music, biomusic, how the mind or its perceptual apparatus can work with sacred geometries of how we can link ideas and thoughts and mobilize them in terms of a larger mosaic. And three, and most importantly, how we can really work deeply within our hearts with a compassion, some call heart mathematics, with a deeper outreach of vibration, realizing that we're all one human being in different forms and different levels of vibration.
Now, I also want to say, but you've already affirmed it, but something we do say about meditation is that when you bring in a higher energy, which is what meditation should do, it should bring in energy from your higher self or from your divine or from the divine consciousness. I'll say it actually can penetrate every cell of your body and actually bring it back. We like to think that meditation aligns your physical body with your own light body so that your divine blueprint becomes realigned perfectly. Because when we're out in the world, whether it's a car accident or just going out and hitting the smog and the 5G or whatever else you don't like, that it really does probably harm your body, you need to restore that body. So we encourage people to meditate in the morning and the evening, and to use it, if nothing else, as a way to really allow your cells to realign back into the light. Now, when you do that, there's also the brain cells, the consciousness reality that can realign with the light. So this is something that's important. Now, how do we do it? We actually use, oftentimes you can do silent meditation is absolutely fine, but we also use sacred music and sacred mantras. And this is part of our work. We actually have music that we've done with Stephen Halpern and other top composers that you can find on our website. The website, by the way, is keysofenoch.org. And so we can chant that, or we can listen to the CDs, but even just chanting it. And we often do this, chanting even the Om. And if you want East and West together, you can do Om Shalom, because it's the same vibration.
It's basically music linguistics, going back to the basic sounds that have shaped civilization. But simply, one sound is not sufficient in terms of global change. We must be able to synthesize consciousness from a variety of directions and many cultural traditions. And so what we can find is the Sanskrit with the Hebrew, the Aramaic, even the ancient Coptic and Egyptian if necessary, or the North American Indian indigenous, whatever is necessary for that person of that particular part of the world to see a type of universal landscape and to visualize his or her body in a series of color forms or color geometries, which opened the flow of the heart even to a greater attunement.
Right, we use terms like Kuan Yin, which was the divine mother of compassion. And if you use that term, really it brings in a higher love and compassion into your system. If you're in the West and prefer the West, people can use the word Christ or Christos. We rather go back to kind of the original Greek. And sometimes for Michael, like the archangel, we talked about protection. We use the name Mikaelu, which seems to be an ancient expression for Michael that was used in the Aramaic. And
we use what we call cosmograms or cosmic pictures also for those who are able to understand the importance of how both sides of the human brain can be synthesized through pictures. And these pictures in color, in multidimensional landscapes, can allow us to focus and to see greater, shall we say, inner relations and outer relations that are necessary. I believe that we're being trained right now by the cosmic symbols we're seeing in space as the government disclosure projects to be prepared for a whole new language. We would call it a galactic language of how we can think on a much higher level of vibration.
So I even say a cosmic language. So in closing, I want to encourage all your audience, to feel free to use the vibrations that they've been taught. It's amazing that it really does pull in the energies. Names are important. Sacred vibrations are important. The Sanskrit people have used this. The Buddhist people have used this for many generations.
And the Christian mystics also, to see the tree of life, or the ancient symbol of how we are one branch in many branches of a greater universal cosmic family.
And I also like to say, in terms of our own evolution, see the tree of life turned upside down. We really came from the heavens, and ultimately our evolution will be to return to the heavens. But it's important that we're here now, because there's a reason. This is a critical time to use our spiritual positive energy to bring in the energy into ourselves, get the insights on how to do our mission like you did, to work with hypnosis, or to work with anything that is in our realm of understanding and our passion and our higher cosmic code, to send that out into the world. And when you see things happening around the planet that need help, go ahead. We can remote view to send energies of peace, love, joy, and transformation to areas, whether it's weather storms, whether it's areas of earthquake,
social conflict.
Put your energy out and help all of us to come together to change the planet.
So the tree of life is the roots of consciousness within ourselves, going through our brain, our higher minds, into the universe, and seeing all of these different star systems as branches of this greater tree of life. The ancient mystics call the Etz Chaim, the tree of life. And we ask people to begin to use, in the Hebrew, the Sanskrit, or whatever of the ancient languages that are sacred, the vibrations of musical attunement. Why? Because our body is basically a musical instrument of divine human partnership or purpose. Ultimately, one understands that there are spiritual guides or higher masters of cosmic intelligence that one can also tune into. But the information received should always be for the greater use of humanity, not for the selfish use of the ego, but for the greater use of humanity in the exaltation of the human race, which we believe is not only in the image of God, but the image of an ongoing process of the human and the divine, what we call the I am of human self-realization, connected with the divine universal mind of the higher creativity. The co-creativity is the purpose of why we are here in the human form.
Right. And we believe the divine exists, your higher overself exists. There are many beings around to help you in a higher consciousness way. You just need to activate them. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yes, I really love and appreciate what you said, because that really explains a lot of how and why we are able to bring angels through, and what we can call the cleanup crew through hypnosis to help, with the body scans, and to really help the individual heal on that level. And I think that's really powerful, because even though we can't see them, they're there. And even through a session, if I have a client that is talking with Gabriel, Uriel, Metatron, Michael, Jesus, Mary, Source, it doesn't matter who it is, there's always an energy that comes into the room and just fills me up with goosebumps and tingles and chills. And so it's really a confirmation of what is possible, and anything is possible. Hypnosis is customizable now, with the soul of intention, of course. We can't make somebody heal if they're not ready to. And so that's really important. I really thank you for that and expressing that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, Melody, this is also in our teaching, the Keys of Enoch speak of the cosmic Christ, which involves all of these beings of light that work as a universal family or team to elevate consciousness and the new planetary systems that are being continually created and born into the frequencies of the divine light. We accept the challenge that we're all facing now to be the light, to be pillars of light and strength and musical harmony in a world that tends to slide more to the side of technical destruction, the inability to hear the cries of Mother Earth, to seek separation rather than unity. We must all be involved in this raising of consciousness through the cosmic office of the Christ, to realize that we're here to make a difference. We are here to choose to be chosen in taking the higher path. We are here to be vibratory vessels of the universal instrument of the I am that I am, the song and the harmonic, the dance of joy, the purpose of life in the human form that is eternal. We thank you, Melanie, for allowing us to speak to you, your audience, and of course to the greater audience from our little office here in New York City.
But we're also on the West Coast, and we're actually international, and we have many books and music cassettes. Keys of Enoch is one, but also Key 405, which is on the cosmic family. I think a lot of it, which we talked about today. And keep going with the great work you're doing, because all of us really can bring in this higher level of consciousness. These beings, they don't leave. I just want to say, they don't leave where they are to come here. Don't ever think you're misusing your energy. They only put a beam, an emanation of their emanation to you, and they literally could even materialize, because that's how consciousness works. Consciousness is universal. Quantum physics tells us this, that we're all entangled and that it's non-local. So all they do to come and to manifest in your midst is send a part of who they are into our reality. And like Kuan Yin, who has 1,000 arms, they have many, many abilities to do that all over the universe. So never feel what you're asking for is too much for the higher intelligence. They're waiting for you to ask.
Every day should be a living vibration, a living meditation. So it's really second nature to feel within one's really, should we say, tongue, underneath one's heart, a song of joy, a vibration, a purpose, a harmony, of helping a person through a happy smile, a handshake, who needs really to see the beauty, the grand design of the universe rather than the individual circumstance that unfortunately the media tends to play up on the negative side. We must be conduits and transformers of a greater positive future. A positive experience has brought us into creation and will continue us as we meet with the cosmic cultures.
We thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I did think about angels living as fractals into people's lives, and when you were talking about that. So thank you. Well, thank you very much. And is there anything else or last messages that you would like to share with anybody?
No, but what's your website for people who are interested?
Oh, yeah. My website is www.mhstarseed.com, or you can find me at www.quantumdisclosureproject.com.
And I work with Stephen Halpern, in particular, our CD entitled Sacred Name, Sacred Codes. And our new album that'll be coming out shortly is Ciphers of the Divine Mother, which is the inner dimension of the divine feminine. It comes through music, harmony, and positive thinking. So we ask all of you out there enjoying this program to realize we have a vast library of music with Alice Coltrane. We've worked with Carlos Santana, some of the great musicians of the world who are using positive thinking and spiritual language really to help humanity wake up and see the greater picture rather than the local picture. Be universally aware that you are eternal beings in human form. And be blessed.
And send that energy out to the planet. The planet needs your help.
Dr. JJ and Dr. Desiree send our love to all of you. Godspeed.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for listening to Quantum Healing Today.